History is not just a story, it's a mystery. At Echoes of Genius, we investigate the knowledge that was lost and the ideas that survived. Our story begins with the greatest treasure of the ancient world and the catastrophic fire that nearly erased it from existence. But did the dream ever truly die? This is the story of a lost world. Echoes of Genius, the Library of Alexandria. In the ancient world, after the death of Alexander the Great, one city rose to become the undisputed capital of human knowledge, Alexandria. And at its heart was not a palace or a fortress, but a revolutionary idea, the Museum, the home of the Muses, an institution dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge itself. Its founder was Ptolemy I, a battle-hardened general of Alexander's, who had a new and even more audacious ambition. He sought to conquer not the world's lands, but its thoughts. To create a library that would contain all of human knowledge. To achieve this, a stunning decree was issued. Every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor was to be searched by royal guards, and every scroll and book on board was to be seized by the state. The original scrolls were taken to the great library to be meticulously copied by a dedicated army of scribes. It was the most ambitious project of intellectual preservation ever attempted. A mission to create a single repository for the entire memory of mankind. At its peak, it is said the Library of Alexandria held over 500,000 papyrus scrolls that collected wisdom of Greece, Egypt, Persia, India, and beyond. It was more than a library. It was the world's first great international university, a place where the greatest minds of the age came to think, to argue, and to create. Led by great librarians, their mission was not just to collect books, but to collect the geniuses who could write them and understand them. The collection grew relentlessly, becoming the single greatest treasure of the ancient world, a treasure whose loss we still feel today. It held lost plays by Sophocles, the complete works of Aristotle, and histories of ancient civilizations that are now gone forever. It was here, within these walls, that the chief librarian, Eratosthenes, a mathematician and astronomer, would achieve the impossible. Using nothing more than a simple stick in the ground and the angle of the sun's rays. And by comparing measurements from two different cities, he set out to measure the entire circumference of the planet. His final calculation was shockingly accurate, off by less than 2%. He had measured the world from inside a library. It was here that the great mathematician Euclid wrote his masterpiece, Elements, a book so perfect in its logic that it would define the laws of geometry for the next 2,000 years. For a brief, shining moment in human history, Alexandria was the brain of the world, a beacon of reason and inquiry, hoarding a treasure of knowledge that tragically would not last forever. For centuries, the library was the intellectual heart of the world. But it was built in a city that would soon be caught in the crossfire of a bitter Roman civil war. In the year 48 BC, the city of Alexandria became a battlefield. The great Roman general, Julius Caesar, was at war with his Egyptian rivals for control of the kingdom. Caesar was a man of immense intellect and a great admirer of culture. But he was also a ruthless and pragmatic military commander who would do whatever it took to win. In the royal palace of Alexandria, he found himself besieged. His small Roman force trapped by the much larger Egyptian army loyal to his enemies. His escape route by sea was cut off by an entire Egyptian fleet controlling the harbor. The situation was desperate, trapped and facing annihilation. Caesar made a daring and brutal decision. If he could not use the ships in the harbor, then no one would. He ordered his men to set fire to the Egyptian fleet. Under the cover of darkness, Roman soldiers hurled torches and flaming arrows onto the wooden vessels. The fire spread with terrifying speed, turning the great harbor into a raging inferno, a wall of flame and smoke against the night sky. But the great library complex, the storehouse of ancient knowledge, stood dangerously close to the docks, and the wind was blowing inland from the sea. A single stray ember carried by the wind from a burning ship. drifted through an open window and landed on a dry, flammable papyrus scroll. It was the tiny spark that ignited a cultural catastrophe. The flame, small at first, began to spread with horrifying speed across the irreplaceable parchment. Inside the Great Hall, scholars and librarians looked up from their work, their quiet world of learning about to be consumed by the chaos of war. The library became a funeral pyre for the ancient mind. Centuries of human knowledge, hundreds of thousands of scrolls, turning to ash and smoke. Lost in the flames, detailed star charts, maps of the ancient world, and the designs for forgotten scientific instruments. Lost forever. Hundreds of plays by Greek masters like Sophocles and Euripides. Epic poems, and the histories of nations whose names we no longer even know. Librarians and scholars desperately tried to save what they could, forming human chains to rescue armfuls of scrolls. But it was a hopeless effort against the raging fire. From a safe distance, Julius Caesar watched the flames. He had broken the naval blockade and saved his legions, but at a cost to civilization that we are still paying for today. The next morning, the scale of the devastation was revealed. The Great Library was a smoldering, blackened ruin, its white marble columns stained with soot. A repository that held nearly 500,000 books, the collective memory of the ancient world, had been reduced to rubble. The knowledge was not just lost, it was erased, leaving behind a profound silence and one of history's greatest and most tragic questions. The fire was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a question that has haunted civilization for 2,000 years. What if the library had survived? Would the Industrial Revolution have begun in the Age of Rome, powered by the lost steam inventions of ancient Alexandria? Would humanity have understood its true place in the cosmos 1,000 years earlier? What incredible knowledge! What lost technologies, what forgotten histories were erased forever? We will never truly know. The historical truth is that the Great Library did not die in a single fiery night. Caesar's fire was a devastating blow, but its death was a long and painful decline. It suffered from centuries of neglect, dwindling funds, and political purges that valued military power over intellectual pursuits. Until finally, in the 4th century AD, the last great collection of scrolls in the city was destroyed by a religious mob, who saw the ancient knowledge as pagan blasphemy. It was the final, brutal end to the greatest collection of knowledge in the ancient world. But an idea is much harder to kill than a book. As a dark age fell over Europe, a new golden age of learning was dawning in the East. In Baghdad's legendary House of Wisdom, Arab and Persian scholars obsessively gathered and translated the surviving Greek texts, preserving the fragile flame of knowledge. Centuries later, that knowledge would travel back into Europe, passed on by monks who painstakingly copied the texts, forming the intellectual foundations for the first universities. The invention of the printing press finally democratized knowledge, doing what the library never could, making thousands of copies available to everyone. And this rediscovered knowledge fueled the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. A new age of discovery built upon the surviving fragments of the world Alexandria had assembled. The library's grand ambition to collect all knowledge under one roof was reborn in the great national and university libraries of the modern world. Today, our library is not made of marble and papyrus, but of fiber optics and silicon. Vast data centers holding more information than Ptolemy could ever have dreamed of. And it is accessible not just to a handful of privileged scholars, but to anyone with a connection to the network, a new, democratic library without walls. The physical scrolls of Alexandria may have turned to ash, but their contents, the ideas that survived, have been copied, translated, and digitized, becoming part of our shared global consciousness. The Great Library is more than a memory of a place. It is an idea, an echo of the timeless human quest for knowledge, a quest that lives on in all of us.